as relating to the temple in Jerusalem. Everybody knew that the house was the temple, right? All in the Psalms and the Old Testament, the Lord says, "Where is the house that you will build for me?" There's a prophecy, "Zeal for my house will consume me." God is always referring to the temple as my house. So the audience of the Jewish people could read between the lines and understand that what Peter is saying is that the temple of God, the footstool of God, the place where you go to interact with God's presence, is no longer a stone structure. It is the gathered stones of people who have tasted that the Lord is good and who come together to bear witness to that and to worship God's presence in our midst and to engage with Christ. We are living stones. We are living testimonies. We are living advertisements of the presence of God here. Now, every story is different. Some of us here will have stories of searching and pondering and wandering. Some will have stories of deepening or a gradual warming to God's presence. Some may have stories of healing and miracles. All these stories are added to another, and it constructs this wonderful spiritual house, this place where God's presence is known, and people are invited to experience that presence. Because ultimately, to be a people of testimony, to be living stones, means that we bear witness to God's presence not just for ourselves, but for those who are around us. The standing stones for Joshua were not set up for themselves, but for those who came after. I mentioned Inukshuk. They're not set up just as something nice to look at. It are signposts. They demand something. They tell something to those who come after. We don't exist for ourselves. Peter writes that we are built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God in Jesus Christ. Now, I'm somewhat of an authority on this, but to be a priesthood is to be called to remind people of the story. That's what a priest does. That's who we're called to be. That's who we all are called to be. It's a call to stand in the place of prayer and present the needs of others before God. It's to stand as an usher and invite people to meet the living God. But more than that, if you look at verse 4, Peter says something very interesting. He says, "As you come to him, the living stone, you yourselves are being built into living stones." Ultimately, the call for the church is to be the presence of Christ in this world. Growing up in the church, my old youth leader used to always say that you may be the only Bible that somebody reads and the only face of Jesus that somebody ever sees. As we grow deeper in our faith, as we feed more on Jesus' presence, we ultimately become that invitational place by which people through us know that there is a God in this world. So what does that mean for us? I think it means something very, very simple. You know, I was thinking about this as I was writing the sermon, and, obviously the talk of stones and building a house, my mind obviously went to our building project. And we talk a lot about our new addition, about how the addition of new stones to our building, we're going to add some new stones, how new stones to our building will be an attraction to our neighbors. People will see what's going on here. Hey, did you see the construction going on 19th Street? They're going to see that, and they're going to hopefully want to check it out. And I think that's true. It's one of the benefits of this project. But the same has to hold true to our spiritual lives. We are called to be a witness in this world, to be a body of people which draws others because they recognize that something is happening here. Hey, did you hear what's happening in that place called Holy Cross? Something's going on there. let's check it out. We are called to bear witness that people are having experiences of God in this world and in this place. And it is an attraction to people, not because this is a holy place, but because we are holy people. And the presence of God is in our midst. In one sense, this passage provides this wonderful guide for us. Interestingly, though, in our readings today, there are two types of stones mentioned. There are the stones that are used to hurt and destroy and to kill, and there are stones that tell the story of God's mighty acts in this world. There are stones that are used as judgments, and there are stones that are used as a means to invite others into a deeper awareness of God. There are stones that are used to tear down and inflict harm, and there are stones that are used to build up, to provide a place where people can meet the living God in their midst. Sadly, in the history of the Christian church, in the history of Christian people, sometimes people can confuse the two. We are called to be living stones, to live out the love and the mercy of God in such a way that people recognize God's presence and are attracted to that. If we wish to be living stones, if we wish to express the presence of Jesus in this world, then we are called to always move deeper, to crave a deeper connection with God. But of course, all our craving does nothing unless we feed on that which we crave. So we're called to be cognizant, to be aware, to nourish ourselves in God's presence here, in the presence of Christ in our midst. And then we are called to do so much that it oozes out of us, so that we can proclaim the excellency of him who has called us out of darkness and into his marvelous light. May we be living stones in this world and in our community.